Hi everyone, welcome back to Cottoverdi. My name's Annette and today I'm going to be sowing a couple of seeds. So I'm going to be sowing my wallflowers and my sweet rocket for flowers next year. So these are biennials, some of them are perennials, but they're mostly biennials, which means that we need to sow them now in order for them to overwinter and for us to have flowers next year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the different varieties that I'm sowing today and describe them to you, and then I'm going to let you know how I'm sowing them and what I'm going to do with my seeds in order to get flowers next year. I'm going to start with the wallflowers and then I'll follow on with the sweet rocket, and I'll put a timestamp up here in case you're only interested in the sweet rocket and you can fast forward to it. Maybe the timestamp will be up here, I don't know. Wallflowers come in a wonderful range of colours, from rich spicy colours through to lovely warm smoky pastels, and they all have a lovely spicy but sweet scent to them, which is really something that we're looking for in the spring when they start to flower. They also often look better planted in blocks rather than just an individual plant. So sow a couple of seeds so that you've got you can have like a nice swathe of plants in your borders. So most wallflowers are biennials, some are perennials, which means that they're going to come back year after year, particularly a variety called Bowles Mauve. That's a really good doer and will keep coming back year after year. But the biennial varieties, if we sow them now, it's the very beginning of July, then they've got time to establish roots, and they will spend the first year establishing roots, and then they'll flower for consecutive years, but they may not be, they're short-lived, so they may not flower for season after season after season, which is why I'm continually sowing seeds for wallflowers every year. Wallflowers really enjoy full sun, but I have had some growing in the shade in the containers outside my front door. They did really well, except that they grew incredibly long because I think they were stretching for the light. So it's best to plant them in full sun if that's what you can do, if you've got full sun in your garden. Looking after wallflowers is really easy. The only piece of advice that I'd really give is to keep deadheading to stop the plants running to seed, because as soon as they run to seed, they aren't going to produce as many flowers. So yeah, just keep deadheading them. Just one more thing I want to mention, if you feel like you're too late to sow seeds or you don't have time to sow seeds, is that very often wallflowers are sold as bare roots, and it's really easy to plant them this way. My only problem with that is that I find they tend to arrive when I don't really want to do any gardening, when it's very cold outside, and then my bare rooted wallflowers always seem to struggle because I leave it too long before planting them out. So that's just a word of advice. If you're buying bare roots, get them in the ground as soon as possible. We can also obviously buy plants in the garden centre or plug plants to grow on ourselves. Anyway, I'm going to go through the different varieties that I'm sowing today, and I'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see what they look like, and then I'll show you how I'm sowing them. I'm sowing 6 different varieties today, and the first one is called Sugar Rush Purple Bicolor, and I planted some of this as plug plants in my garden last year, and actually they've been doing really well and they're still flowering, and I have been going around deadheading them. I'm reluctant to cut off all the tiny little flowers though. I know that I should, I just find it a real struggle because I want that pop of colour in the garden, but it is a beautiful wallflower. They don't grow particularly tall, so they'll grow to about 30 tall and maybe 50 wide. Sugar Rush Purple Bicolor has these really dense flower spikes. They start off purple and then they fade to pink and then almost white, so you get like this multitude of colours on the stem. They're really cute. I think that they go with so many things in my garden, so I particularly love this particular wallflower. The next one I'm sowing is called Little Kiss Lilac. It also only grows to 30 centimetres tall, and it's a miniature wallflower with lilac-y mauve flowers. Then I'm sowing one called Ruby Gem. As you can imagine, it's a deep ruby colour and it's on sturdy stems, but this one grows to 45 centimetres tall, so it's a nice height. Then I'm sowing Primrose Bedder, which, as you can imagine, has beautiful clear primrose coloured flowers, a lovely deep verging on gentle yellow, and these also grow to 45 centimetres tall. Then I'm sowing Ivory White, and these start off as the palest primrose yellow colour, and then they fade to a gentle cream, and they also grow to 45 centimetres. And then the next one I'm sowing is called Ray's Early Giants, and these grow to 60 to 90 centimetres tall, and the blurb on this one is fascinating. So obviously Ray grew them. These are a mix of exceptionally large shrubby wallflowers with different twin-toned flowers, some of which are going to flower incredibly early, even earlier than the earliest wallflowers. So it'll be a mix, and I'll just be lucky with whichever ones I get. And in fact, I haven't got that many seeds left, so I'm hoping that they all germinate so that I can have like some really early wallflowers. That would be wonderful. Wallflowers can be sown either now, between sort of May and July, or you could sow them in the autumn, sort of from August onwards. It's probably best not to sow them in the really warm part of the summer. So they germinate best at 20 degrees, and they'll germinate in 7 to 14 days. So it is about 20 degrees on a good day here at the moment. I mean, it's lovely and warm today. So now is a good time for me to sow them, and I really want to get started. I'm just going to sprinkle them onto the top of a multi-purpose peat-free compost. I'm not using a seed compost. And then I'm going to cover them lightly with some vermiculite, which does let the light in, but it will keep the seeds moist, and it will also make sure they've got good contact with the compost, and hopefully I'll see some good germination. Now I'm going to be sowing my sweet rocket, or Dame's rocket. It's called Hesperus, and it generally comes in two colours. It comes in like a purple colour or a white colour, and I've got a very pale lavender colour, which is quite hard to come by, that seed, and I've just got a few seeds left, so I'm quite excited about being able to grow that one. So it is really important that we sow the Hesperus now. Sort of by the end of July, I would definitely have sown them. You can sow them in the autumn too, but the important thing about the sweet rocket is that it really needs, the plant itself needs a period of growing in the cold in order to trigger flower production the following year. So it's a particular type of biennial that requires something called vernalization, which is this growing in the cold temperatures. So you don't just want to germinate it while it's cool, it actually needs to be growing in the cold in order to flower next year. So that's why I want to get the seeds sown now, so that the plants can grow out and I can plant them out in the autumn. Probably in September I'll plant them out, and then that way they will be sitting in the ground hopefully through all the colder months, and I'll get loads of flowers next year. Now of course with the wallflowers and the rocket that I'm sowing today, you can just sprinkle these seeds in your garden. There's, you know, you don't need to make a particular fuss about it. Just make a shallow drill or just chuck the seeds in the garden if you don't want to sow into cell trays. But I like to place my plants, I like to protect them from slugs and snails and pets and things like that, so I sow mine into seed trays. But if you want to sprinkle your seeds in the garden, then by all means definitely do that. So sweet rocket is actually really easy to grow. They're very hardy. When we're sowing the seeds, they're not bothered at all by being pricked out and things like that, and because they're so hardy, they'll just withstand, you know, really cold temperatures, I think down to like -20. And in fact, what happens to the plants when they're out in the cold and subjected to the cold is that the leaves start turning red, and then people think that maybe the plants are sick or dying, but actually that's just what's supposed to happen to your sweet rocket. And then that way you know that hopefully you're going to get great flowers next year, because the vernalization has taken place and they've been subjected to cold enough temperatures. So just like wallflowers, sweet rocket or Dame's rocket has got gorgeously fragrant flowers, and they look wonderful, you know, planted amongst our other spring flowering plants, but they are one of the first cut flowers to flower, to bloom in the garden. So actually they're really handy as early flowering plants, which is why I particularly want to grow them every year. Now they will grow again the following year, the same plant will flower again the following year, but the flowers are just never as good. The quality isn't as good, they're not packed as densely. So it is best to either let them self-seed themselves or to grow your own each year, just so that you get really beautiful flower spikes. The other thing about sweet rocket is that it's going to grow to about 1.25 to 1.5 meters, so 1.5 meters tall, which I think that's like 5 foot. They can grow up to 5 foot tall, so they're going to need staking. Otherwise they'll just flop over, and that's definitely happened to me in the past, is that I didn't stake them and they just sort of all tumbled onto the ground, which is a bit annoying. So learn from my mistakes and definitely stake your sweet rocket. So I'm sowing the purple violet colour, which is also called Dame's violet. I'm sowing white or alba, and then I'm sowing the one that's really hard to come by, which is called pale lavender, and I think it really is just a very pale version, sort of mixed with white, so a very pale version of the purple one. It's a cross between the two, I suppose. Sweet rocket is incredibly easy to sow. We just sprinkle it onto the top of compost. Again, I'm not using seed compost, I'm just using ordinary multi-purpose peat-free compost. They're going to take 3 to 4 weeks to germinate, and ideal temperatures are between 18 and 21 degrees. And also don't cover the seed because they need light in order to germinate. So they really are super easy. Just maybe just pat them down, make sure they've got really good contact with the compost. Make sure those seeds are touching the compost properly, and then you'll have really good germination. But that's it for today. I hope you've had fun with me as I've sown my seed. I really hope that it's inspired you to maybe sow some seeds of your own and get out into the garden and enjoy this wonderful weather we're finally having. It's stopped raining and I'm so happy about it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.